Hey guys, welcome back to the Kampai Sugai podcast. It's your boy Gavin. What's up, guys? So, thank you for joining us today, and we got a really special guest for you today. I mean, someone who's a huge entrepreneur and has established himself in the industry, the food industry here. He's opened Doraku Sushi and Izakaya, Blue Tree Cafe, 1938 Indochine, uh, Herringbone, Chingmu Noodle, and Aoki Teppanyaki. Guys, we have the CEO and president of Aoki Group, Mr. Kevin Aoki. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Gavin. It's great to be here, and thanks for the great introduction.
Yeah, of course, man. I mean, you deserve it. You've really established yourself here. Doraku is it's a huge restaurant here, honestly. I mean, and I remember like it opened at 1999, so it was something that opened in the mainland, right? That was your first restaurant in 1999 in Florida, and then now it's really developed over here. So it's huge. You've developed.
Yeah, I opened it with my father in Miami,
Mm-hmm.
and then after he passed away, I went off on my own, and then I opened my first Doraku in Hawaii. I opened it from ground zero,
Mm-hmm.
the four walls, and came in 2008, built that restaurant, and it's still there. It's been 15 years here in Hawaii.
That's amazing. I mean, like the pretty much the industry that you've built, the huge amount of um like you pretty much built like a restaurant empire here. You know what I mean? Like there's so much going on, and you're still growing. I mean, you have even another Doraku that you just opened up in Kapolei, in December of 2022. So we'll get to that in a bit, but first of all, I want to ask, like, how's it going? I mean, you just were in like Japan, I think Thailand. You were traveling all over the world, and then now you're back in Hawaii, and you're still busy, dude. Like, how's things going?
Yeah, I it it my work gives me opportunity to travel around the world,
Mm-hmm.
building furniture and restaurant supplies. And then also I have my brother Steve, who's a jet setter,
Mm-hmm.
who's doing concerts. So I want to stop by and see how he's doing. And my mom just turned 80 years old, so we all got
Wow.
together in Japan and celebrated her birthday. It was a great time.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations to her. Yeah, happy birthday to her. I mean, my goodness. Um, yeah, how is it being on stage with your brother Steve? Like, for people that know Steve Aoki, I think they know. That's to me, that's like Asian Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Like when he's performing, um, it's always hype. So how is it being on stage with him? At some of those
Oh, I I,
events.
I love watching him because he's such a great entertainer. He just goes up there and every concert, every performance he does, he's just gauging people's reaction and
Mm-hmm.
changing the music and throwing cakes and diving into this audience. And I mean, he's such a great entertainer.
Mm-hmm.
That I just love watching him.
Yeah, I mean, he's world renowned too, as well as um Devin Aoki, who's your sister, right? She is your related to you as well. So, I mean, you guys have a huge family, you know.
Yeah, my father had seven kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and of his second marriage, he had three, and then Devin's the youngest one in the second marriage.
Mm.
But yeah, she was kind of the frontliner of the whole family
Mm-hmm.
when she was like 14 to 17 years old, modeling it for Chanel and then doing the actressing, Fast and Furious.
Mm-hmm.
But now she's got like four kids and she's relaxed at home in Florida. Um, but yeah, my dad got seven kids. We're all over the place right now.
I mean, yeah, it's amazing what your dad built. He built a legacy of Benihana and world renowned. I mean, it's a legendary teppanyaki place that people know about. I didn't realize how many people knew about it until like I dived a little deeper into it, and it's world renowned. Like people know about Benihanas. You can go to the mainland, other countries, they'll tell you, hey, that's the famous place, Benihana's. So I mean, how was that for you, kind of growing up with your dad and seeing that kind of success for that restaurant?
Well, me being the oldest son, I've always watched my dad um, grow his company.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I just wanted to be just like him. So I worked right after college, right after I finished school. I went into working for my father. I started like running restaurants in California, Dallas, Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Worked for him for 15 years before he passed away. So for me, it was everything. For my brother, I mean, he worked in the restaurant too
Mm-hmm.
with me. He was in the kitchen, he was bartending, he was hosting, but he was just like, "This is not for me, Kevin. I got to get out of here." For me, I just, it became everything became understanding the restaurant business.
Mm-hmm.
Everything became how to build a restaurant, how to manage a restaurant, how to grow, restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I just dove right into the restaurant business.
How is it kind of separating yourself from like what your dad built? Because I mean, like I said, your dad built something so world renowned, but then now you're really building Aoki Group and you're really establishing yourself here and even other countries as well. But Doraku is such a big restaurant here as well. I feel like it's very well known, very prestigious here. So how is that transition to kind of being your own restaurateur?
Yeah, well, my dad created this. My dad, when he opened Benihana's back in '64, his mission was to just educate people about Japanese food.
Mm-hmm.
Because back in the '60s, people didn't eat Japanese food.
Mm.
It's like if they ate any Asian food, it's like they ate wontons or dumplings at a Chinese restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So he really had to educate people what Japanese food was. You know, sushi, slimy, raw things. Back then, no one ate that.
Right.
So my dad brought in teppanyaki, steak, chicken, and shrimp, cooked American way, and people started, embracing that concept. And then he started serving sushi, and then he kind of educated Americans about Japanese food.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I learned that I was brought into Benihana's and about Japanese cuisine. So I started out with Doraku. For me, I just envisioned a restaurant that I would like to hang out at,
Mm-hmm.
a cool little cool Japanese sushi bar. So that's where I started. I was like, what makes me happy? What is somewhere where I would want to hang out? And I went from Daddy's Teppanyaki restaurant to something more cool, something more relevant,
Mm-hmm.
something that attracted the younger audience, and something that really has more frequency of dining.
Mm-hmm.
So I jumped into Doraku, and then I just enjoyed opening Doraku restaurants. So I was like, okay, you know instead of opening them like my dad in every major city in the United States, I thought, I need to come up with a few other concepts and
Mm-hmm.
cluster them around Doraku so I could just manage more restaurants in one little area.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I have, Honolulu, I got Las Vegas, where I like to open more restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
and then Miami. So I really have 3 different markets instead of, my dad, he had, 25 different markets of
Yeah.
where Benihana was in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Doraku is really expanding yourself, and that's a very smart business model. I mean, keeping everything kind of clustered together, and just it's basically kind of like establishing yourself in an area, you know. And speaking of Doraku, I mean, one thing that I don't know if people know about is you guys have a cigar service as well. I mean, I feel like that's very exclusive to Doraku, but you guys have a cigar service at like 8 p.m. or something like that.
Yeah, well, I love cigars. I love, things that build lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that people just like to relax and enjoy, whether it's smoking cigars or drinking whiskey or
Mm-hmm.
sipping on sake. Um, I really wanted to put it into that concept. So at Kapolei, where I just opened up in early December,
Mm-hmm.
we have this little lounge. They, that area permits cigar smoking or
Mm.
smoking.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my license there, and we're lighting up over there after 8 o'clock.
Wow.
Oh, I did it after 8 o'clock because there's a lot of families that come in earlier,
True.
pre 8 o'clock, and I thought might bother them, and I want to be able to take care of both
Mm-hmm.
cigar smokers and then families that come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so speaking on Doraku and Kapolei, it's a big space. It's I think it's like 5,000 square feet, and it's new to the public, but it was supposed to open in March 2022, but you guys had a pretty serious theft issue, and they took away your restaurant equipment, your decor. So how is recovering those expenses and being able to open up December 22, like how was that experience, trying to push through that?
Well, imagine if you came up with the design and build out, and you stuck it all in one container,
Mm,
and then it got stolen. So
mm,
then I had to redevelop the design and elements in the restaurant again,
mm-hmm.
and then buy all that restaurant equipment again and put it in another container. So it was definitely it caused a delay,
Mm-hmm.
and it was challenging to get open.
Mm,
But me being like, I just enjoy what I do, so I just embrace the fact that it's all gone. Let's start over, and let's make it even better.
mm-hmm.
So when that happened, I went back and I searched for different other, artisanal items that I can put around the restaurant to make it more relevant, and then redesign the whole restaurant again. Uh, it was a step back, but then I think we got a better product now.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Because right now the design of that restaurant, um, I was envisioning like when you're in Japan, you go through Shibuya or Kabukicho, where there's signs all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
um, and there's like little stores here and there, all the hustle and bustle, that happens when you walk through. I wanted that effect when you walk into that restaurant,
Mm,
um, and you walk in. So you walk into a bar that looks like it's outside. It's got little booths around here and there. I wanted someone to feel like they're going through Shibuya or Kabukicho
like a
and
night
feeling the
market.
energy of Japan.
Yeah, like a night market, like someone just kind of going through that hustle and bustle, which is that's pretty cool. I get that feeling when I even when I like visit like 1938 in Indochine, like I get that vibe when I walk in there. So and one thing that I think is pretty cool is like I you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like I think Doraku Kapolei, like the countertops were even some of it was from your old buildings, and then you kind of laid them into the structure of some of the the architecture that you put into your restaurant. So I
Oh, I love repurposing things.
mm.
So my wife thinks I'm a junk collector, but one of my most interesting thing is finding something and making it, beautifying it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's an old countertop, whether it's like paddles that you make rooftops with,
Mm.
make like sake holders.
Mm-hmm.
I just love repurposing. So at Kapolei, the whole bar die is this copper panel that I pulled off one of our old buildings.
Wow.
So real copper bar die. The countertops, like everything in that restaurant, has been repurposed.
Mm.
So all the wood in there was found at different barns and different places in Asia. Pulled the nails out and actually made those booths that you see over there.
Oh wow. Huh. That's pretty amazing because then it it really pushes the sustainability of a restaurant, and then even sustainability for like instead of buying new materials and really shipping them over and then creating something new, you repurpose things that were once used that were new, something that was very exclusive, but then you're able to kind of bring it into a new fold. So I think that's pretty amazing, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I love doing that. It's a really feel good thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good for the environment, and also it brings out the authenticity of the brand,
Mm-hmm.
of whatever message you're trying to give. It I think it authenticizes it.
Mm. Awesome. So as a restaurateur, growing up could because like we were saying, you know, you're the oldest boy of seven children. Did a lot of them kind of work in the restaurant industry with you, and then or did they, and then for yourself, why did you like stick around that?
Yeah. So my dad, obviously he's in the restaurant business. I joined in, and then each one of his kids joined into the restaurant business too,
Mm-hmm.
working under me because I was the first manager at the restaurants.
Oh.
So my dad would be like, okay, send Kyle in there for summertime, see how he likes it.
Mm-hmm.
So my other brother Kyle came in. And he's like, all right, it's Steve's turn to come in. So Steve came in, worked, and then there's Echo, who's my other sister,
Mm.
Devin, and Grace, my older sister. They all came and worked at the restaurant business,
Mm.
and they did different things. Like some of them were accounting, some of them did like hostessing, some of them was management. Um, but at the end, it's just it didn't stick with them. They decided to go off on something else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for me, I didn't know what else to do in my life, so I just said, "This is it. I'm going to do it, man."
Mm-hmm.
And when my father passed away, it gave me opportunity to really blossom my talents that I have.
Mm.
Because before I worked for my dad, I was just an administrator working at the restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
administrating my dad's dream and vision.
Mm-hmm.
But now, when I did my own concept after he passed away, it pulled things out of me that made me grow each one of my concepts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my dad's never seen any of my restaurants,
Mm.
um, so I feel like he's never seen my talent,
Mm.
but um, he's watching me from the top and looking down. All right, he knows a few things.
Well, his spirit is there in those restaurants. You know what I mean? And then
Oh yeah,
the philosophy too, like your grandfather's motto, which was to make great food, or to what is that? It was to
make make you friends
yeah,
with serving
make
great
great
food.
friends with great food. So I
Yeah.
feel like that spirit of that, that philosophy, that motto is in your restaurants today. So um
Yeah, my grandfather in 1942 opened up a small coffee shop in
hmm,
Nihonbashi, Japan.
wow.
And this is right after the war. So everyone's depressed. Everyone's like, they were hiding under the ground because they're worried about the bombs coming in.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And my grandfather was like, you know what? I'm going to open this little coffee shop to bring my friends out and serve them food.
Wow.
So it was like one of the first restaurants built right after the war.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this little slogan. It says Bishoku Kayu in Japanese, and that means making friends with food. And my dad took that, you know, concept, brought Benihanas to America,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I'm going to continue that tradition. It's
Mm,
going to be, the mission of my company.
mm-hmm.
And I've grown that way. Like I open one restaurant, I meet someone, they give me an opportunity to open the second restaurant. I meet some bankers, they give me some financing.
Mm-hmm.
I meet, managers. I mean, it's all about like connecting people together and making things happen,
Mm-hmm.
and giving them benefit as you're receiving benefit. It's like it's like a big circle.
Yeah. It's a cycle. Do you have a
Yeah.
system in place to where, like, if you open one restaurant, maybe a few tweaks, but you kind of stay with that same system in developing every single restaurant?
Yeah, I mean, for Doraku, it's a little bit simpler because I have a few proven restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
So I would take those proven ideas and bring it to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
For like 1938, I'm still tweaking it. You know, we just got a new chef over there. She's done amazing things to develop the menu a little bit to the second generation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about tweaking it. Once I get it right and I get customers' approval, then I might open a second one.
Mm-hmm.
For Aoki Teppanyaki, I opened one in Miami. That really, the success of that stems from my father learning what he did at Benihana's,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just took that to the next generation and made it a little bit more relevant to customers today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I opened in Waikiki, and it's doing amazing there. And that, all this gave me the opportunity of managing Herringbone restaurant, for the Tao Group,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and meeting other people to open new restaurants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like, I feel like, I'm kind of the same way, especially with like podcasting or even going to like networking events. Like, I just kind of go someplace or I develop something, and then when I'm there, I get all these different opportunities, and I got to figure out which one I really want to take and really want to go with. But I just kind of ride
Yeah.
with it, you know what I mean? And hopefully, it works for the best. I trust myself to figure out what's good for the opportunities ahead, and I just keep going with that. So I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah. It's like, people think you're lucky, but
Mm-hmm.
luck is when, preparation meets the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So you just keep preparing, preparing, preparing. And once that opportunity comes, you just take it.
Yeah.
There's really we're not really lucky. We're just there
Mm-hmm.
looking for that opportunity, preparing for it.
Mm-hmm.
Once it comes, you just got to grab it.
Yeah. It just happens naturally, and as long as you consistently work at it and really build upon it, like if you're right there at the right place at the right time, things will come that way. So I totally believe that. And for like yourself, you've definitely been at the right places at the right time. So kudos
I mean,
to
I've been at the wrong places at the wrong time for a long time, more than I've been at the right places at the wrong time. But you just got to be out there all the time. I
mm,
mean,
mm-hmm.
even if you lose a container, if you lose a restaurant during COVID, or
Yeah.
whatever adversities you have, you just got to stay positive and keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it takes you to move 2 steps back, move a couple steps back, and then just go move forward again.
Yeah. Speaking of restaurants, so we were talking about Doraku at Lincoln Road, which is in Miami Beach. It closed down during COVID, and that was literally you and your dad worked with that restaurant. It's been there for I think 23 years. So like, what were the lessons from like closing down that business and really pushing forward from that?
Well, we opened that restaurant in 1999. Um, so it's been like 23 years.
Mm,
And it during its heyday, I mean, that restaurant was the restaurant of the day.
mm,
Um, but it's that brand's been out in Florida for such a long time
mm-hmm,
that new other restaurants came in that had a different concept, different flair, different, so the I guess to keep a brand relevant, you got to keep evolving it. You got to keep changing. You got to keep looking at your audience. You got to keep reinventing yourself,
mm-hmm,
and that's what we're trying to do for 23 years. But then the lease came up, and we just that's it. Just walk away from it.
mm,
And I really want to focus my attentions in Hawaii,
mm-hmm,
and put my efforts here, than open more restaurants in Florida. So
mm-hmm.
it was just the right time to leave. Um, COVID hit, and my lease came up, and I was like, all right, it's time to close this chapter down and open in Kapolei.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, we signed lease in Kapolei. We opened in Kapolei, and Kapolei is doing amazing. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a part of the journey of a business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the same thing like we were talking about with opportunity too. Like there's some opportunities that you have to close the door in order to make sure that you're investing all your time into something that's even greater. You know what I mean? So I think that's a good lesson for entrepreneurs to you know understand when things are you got to move on and you got to move on to something even greater and something new. But you can always take lessons from the door that you went through in the past. So, you know,
Yeah,
um,
definitely. Life's about lessons.
yeah.
I mean, you were never smart enough not to learn anything. We got to keep learning.
Mm-hmm.
Like every day, I wake up and I'm learning something new every day.
Mm.
Especially today with how fast the trends are moving. With these young people, their demands are much greater than, for example, my generation,
Mm-hmm.
where brands lasted longer. Nowadays, I think the life of a brand is much shorter,
Mm.
unless you can keep evolving it. You know, having such a quick evolution,
Mm-hmm.
and developing it and keeping it relevant. I think it's harder today to keep a brand going than it was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So I just have a couple more questions. First one I have is what are like three lessons you have for new entrepreneurs today? Because I like we were talking like you were just talking about like the landscape has changed over 10 years. There's different access to a lot of resources. Social media is one. YouTube commercializing things are it's different now. But I think some of the principles that you've learned probably have been consistent through those 10 years and even now. So what are like three things that you would tell like an entrepreneur in like their journey?
I mean, I would have to say they're really basic things that everyone knows.
Hmm.
Like, for example, work hard. You know, right? I mean, I think that's if you do that, you're 80% there.
Hmm.
Working hard, because I think a lot of people just they decide not to work hard. They think that oh, I'm going to use my brain, not my physical being to work hard.
Hmm.
But I just think it's always important to work hard and be in front of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think that's the most important thing, and I keep telling that to my daughter, Noah, because she works for me in the marketing department,
Okay.
and I just I want her to instill the value of hard work.
Hmm.
Um, the second thing I would just think is like you cannot stop learning.
Mm-hmm.
So every day is about knowledge, learning new things, being relevant, um, learning new trends, going out there,
Mm-hmm.
um, and checking things out. I think that's keeping relevant is very important. Um, and the third thing is work smart. Pick
Mm-hmm.
your battles, like you say. Um, don't take all the opportunities. Be selective
Mm-hmm.
and pick your battles. Be selective and work hard.
Mm.
Yes, I think
And be
that's the other
relevant
thing is
and stay
you got to
relevant.
work hard. You got to
Yeah.
be out there.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And then for the last question, what's next for you? I mean, I know that I know Herringbone and even 1938 Indochine, you guys are making like you guys have a new menu that you're gonna start to unveil at the end of March. So and then besides that, what's next for you?
I right now it's just really focusing on what I have,
Mm-hmm.
and then like yourself, when the opportunity comes,
Take
I'm
it.
gonna that'll be the next opportunity. I'm not exactly sure what my horizon is. I have no vision of what's going to happen
Mm-hmm.
in 5 years, 10 years. But all I want to do is I want to take care of my existing customers, my restaurants, my employees. Right now we have a lot of employees in Hawaii,
Mm.
so I got to make sure I develop a system that keep them happy, keep them coming back to work, and because they're the ambassadors of my brand. So
Mm-hmm.
I got to make sure that they are prioritized in whatever I do, to take care of our customers and whatever opportunity that God gives me, I'm just gonna you know enjoy whatever comes and ride with it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, Kevin, I gotta say thank you for coming on the show and talking to us about letting us pick your brain because for someone like yourself, you've established so much already. But yeah, I feel like with knowledge, and it's always good to share with others. So I'm very grateful that you're able to share it with us and talk about your experience and be able to share with us. So um, real quick, do you have any social media stuff you want to like shout out? You have any pages that you want people to like check out and follow?
Yeah, I mean, if you could follow Doraku Sushi, at Doraku Sushi for the Instagram for Doraku. Indochine is 1938 Indochine. Um, Blue Tree is Blue Tree.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you could follow one of our accounts, my personal account is KEV Aoki at Kev Aoki. Um, Follow my brother Steve. The guy's doing some great stuff. He already has like 10.5 million followers,
Yeah.
so I don't need any more followers. But if you have time to check out what we're doing, please follow us.
Mm-hmm. Real quick with Steve, I one of my favorite songs from him is Turbulence. So I would remember listening to that song like crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that
I think
was
that's with Little John.
yep,
That's a great song.
yep, that's the one with
I
Little
mean, I
John.
love that song.
So
That's definitely one of those old school songs. I mean, that's that, so much energy in that song.
Yeah, it's huge amounts of energy. So I always imagine myself on the plane listening to that and then being part
Yeah,
of that.
because he's like this. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
like.
So yeah, I always
I got some sake. I don't know if you. Let's do a
yes,
Kampai toast.
we are
You
gonna
got your sake?
toast. So
All right, that's great.
yeah, just to let people know, this is the Aoki sake right here. And we're gonna cheers to it. We're gonna cheers. So
Yeah,
I have my shot glass with me over here,
all right.
and then yeah, let's bust this out. So people know at home, they know like if we're gonna, this is how we ended off. We always do a cheers. I took a big shot, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So Kevin, thank you for joining us on the show. Thank you so much for sharing. And this is to you. This is to your success in the future, new opportunities wherever they come from. But cheers to you. Kampai.
Kampai. Thanks, Kevin.
Oh wow, that's really smooth.
Thank you.